Hey everybody, I'm Sean Robinson.
I'm Carson Grubaugh, and we are back with the second part of our Stephen Murphy series. And
Extravaganza.
I'm really excited about this because I found out something new thanks to Sean, that Stephen Murphy, the writer of Puma Blues, was also the writer behind the
Yes. Teenage.
Archie and Mirage Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures books.
Yeah. So Carson, what was your first issue of this amazing comic? Because mine was number 5, the first Stephen Murphy issue.
I don't know, honestly. Like, it could have been number 1, it could have been number 5. I got the new IDW volumes 2 and 3 because that was the Stephen Murphy stuff. But I was looking online at the 1 through 4, and I might have read those, but these are familiar.
Yeah.
It's been so long though. But what happened is we were at the prime age, right? You were like 7 or 8, and I was 6 or 7 when the cartoons came out. I never read the Eastman and Laird stuff, still haven't. But I didn't have a TV growing up, and Ninja Turtles were the biggest thing, and the only way I could get Ninja Turtle content was this. And I'm pretty sure I was reading it from the beginning because it's the first 4 issues are the TV show in comic format. And I remember that's why I was buying them, was because that was how I thought that I was getting the same story as the TV show. I didn't realize that starting here with the Murphy stuff, they become their own thing. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here that I know for sure I read. And this is the reason I started drawing my own mutants. I started making my own mutants. And I told my parents I was going to be a comic artist. And I was going to the comic shop to buy the next issue of whatever this was. I don't know how far into this run I got, when my brother, he was just mad that I was getting something he wasn't. So he grabbed a comic because he just wanted something too. And that was X-Men #1 by Jim Lee. And when we got back to grandma's house and I finished my Ninja Turtle and I grabbed that, I was like, so yeah, this was a real treat to read.
Yeah, so I had started picking them up at the grocery store. I would go there with my go with my dad, and they had a little selection of comics. And I remember picking up the first issue that I bought, and I'm pretty sure that it was the first Stephen Murphy issue. We should say that Mr. Murphy, the writer of these comics, is not credited as Stephen Murphy. These were coming out right as Puma Blues was tail spinning, presumably because the last 2 issues of Puma Blues were published by Mirage. He was around the studio and was able to pitch some stories. And Mirage, even though these were being published by Archie, Mirage was involved in the making of them. And people who have followed all of the Mirage comics will recognize a lot of the names. So the plotting is credited to someone named Dean McLaren, which is Stephen Murphy's nom de plume, and Ryan Brown. And Ryan Brown is one of those dudes who started it at Mirage as like a assistant, filling in blacks and things like that, and ended up kind of climbing the ladder and doing a lot of different stuff there. And these 2 dudes plotted these issues. Stephen Murphy wrote them. It is obvious, I mean, reading them back to back, quite incredible how he managed to pack in all of his same interests into these comics for kids. But at the time, I was just like, oh man, there's a comic that's like the Turtles TV show, but better. There's no bad episodes. There's no like goofy animation. It's like they got the best animator who worked on this comic, and he just went nuts. So, most of the issues that we're going to look at today were drawn by Kevin Michroney. Michroney.
It's like every other issue is
the
one, and his stuff is just like, that is the Ninja Turtles in my head, like
exactly. And no surprise, Kevin Michroney now works as an animator, because obviously the dude was just a phenom. And they got a really, really excellent sympathetic inker on there with him, and I think that he did all of the issues that he could handle. And whenever he needed a 1-month break, they had Jim Lawson come on board. Jim Lawson also worked on the Mirage Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and you can see that he kind of strains to adapt somewhat. I think his first issue with the wrestling is fantastic, but his second one is a little bit more Jim Lawson-y, and gives it a little bit more of a grotesque kind of look, which I still really enjoy. But and then
it works for that story.
It does. And there's a fill-in issue by Don Simpson too.
Was there?
Yeah,
I didn't notice that when I was in these first two. I have volume 2 and 3. You might have read more than I did.
Well, let's take a look at them.
Okay.
I haven't seen these reprints at all, so all I've got is the original issue. So
okay, so let me be super critical of the reprints. Let me switch over so you can somewhat see them here. IDW did not give a fuck about these books.
Certainly not about the cover there. Good God.
No, and look at, like, this is how I got it in the mail. Like, this is, and I bought it new. This isn't used. It's on really bad newsprint paper, and they obviously just went and scanned, and I have some pages tagged. I didn't scan them in myself because it's so bad you'll be able to see it. But they obviously just went and grabbed like your issues out of your closet and scanned them, which I get. Some people like that nostalgia look, but I'll show you when we get there. It's bad. But it's Stephen Murphy writing it right out the gate. Come on, it's a manta ray right there. He loves
that
these
appears
things.
to be flying.
Yeah. And that line that I was pointing out in the Puma Blues, it's no mirrorfish, that's a ray because of the cephalic fins. It's head fins. It's called the lesser devil ray, known as the common manta, and he kind of gives the same description of them in there. And they're pure, joyous, graceful, innocent. He just loves them.
I could not believe, looking at this last night, I could not believe how influenced I've been by this. It's like every single frame I must have copied into a notebook somewhere. Every little tick I've absorbed. I was just stunned. It was like I knew every single image. That image of Leonardo in the bottom right there, that hand coming out of the water. I mean, even down to like how thick the sawgrass there is inked. I just felt like all this stuff had just been absorbed, by my little pea brain.
I think Jim Lee overwrote all of this for me. Like, I don't think I bought another Ninja Turtles comic after my brother got that Jim Lee one, because all my money went. So I don't recognize too many of them. But this is the Ninja Turtles. This is what the Ninja Turtles look like. That Eastman and Laird, dark, grimy, gritty. That's not my Ninja Turtles. This is the Ninja Turtles, like 100%.
Did you have any observations about the storytelling? I mean, it's just so smooth,
no,
and clean. I just felt like you understand everybody's motives at all times. Michroney does.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, Michroney does such a great job of like distinguishing them personality-wise, even though their designs are basically visually the same.
And his expressions, like, Sean and I are both working on covers for a re-release of the Eastman and Laird TMT number 8 with Cerebus in it. And because I never read that stuff, mine is a tribute to this and the arcade game, which I just found out last night. They're actually releasing a new video game that looks like the old arcade game. But I was having trouble because I'm not so much of a cartoonist, getting the expressions I wanted in mine, and looking at how he handles the shapes on their face.
Right.
I was just so impressed. Like, man, it's such good cartooning. Every expression. That's what I was paying a lot of attention to in the art.
And if you've never tried to do something like this, it's surprising what an interesting and difficult skill set it is. You've got this like, abstracted form that you want to also be able to rotate and look at in different angles. And, he doesn't have like a toy sitting there at his desk, presumably. He's rotating all of this in his brain. He's not referencing a turtle when he's drawing him.
Yeah, and to figure out like when does the nose actually become a lump? When is it just part of this big oval? When does the mouth show up on both sides? When is it like off to one side? Like that's just stuff I really, really, really struggle with. And I was learning so much from looking at how he handled the mouths and the eyes, and how the eyes warp the masks. And
Right.
yeah, I mean, he really is. I don't know why I've never heard this guy's name in any other. I guess he went on to do animation, but and
Yeah, it's
his brush
shocking though.
work, or whoever inked it,
Right.
they're nice, big, juicy brushes.
Yeah, you would think that you know, it's interesting, people still talk about Carl Barks and things like that. Like maybe if Carl Barks had only worked for 3 years and then went on to be an anonymous animator at the Disney studio, you wouldn't talk about him. But it's, you know, I think it's a worthwhile comparison.
Yeah, he's like the good turtle artist for
Right.
sure. And here's Stephen Murphy again. Yeah, I'm gonna get that manta ray right out the gate. And I love it. He's so aware of like that they all are artist names. So the guy's name is Man Ray. I love it. But basically each issue he creates a new mutant, right?
Will you go back one more page? This fight here that he's got with Shredder underwater, and he grabs the things from his mouth and rips them open, and it's that gulp there. I remember as a, you know, third grader or whatever, just like having this visceral reaction to that.
And Shredder's such a bitch in these comics. Like he's not scary at all. I don't remember that. I remember thinking Shredder was scary, but he's so incompetent. And Krang being the bad guy, like that's manipulating Shredder, wasn't something that I remembered too much.
Will you go back one page just real quick? That shot there with the four of them looking at the Statue of Liberty, and all of them in red and with the black, you know, backlight, like that right there. I've used that in like 3 different comics that I've done without knowing that I was
poured
referencing
over these
something
more than I did. I think my obsession with the turtles was really, I went, and probably because I was reading this where there's a new mutant each episode, I was so interested in making my own mutants. Like that's what I remember doing when I was a kid. I was always making my own characters, always making my own mutants. And then when X-Men, you know, that kind of mutant, I was always creating characters. So I don't think I was paying attention enough to that kind of stuff as a kid. You were more sophisticated as a kid.
Well, I just was learning from, especially like stuff with having an object in the foreground, how to communicate stuff, like having his tongue hang out, the droll reaction of the pizza worker there having the exact same stone face. That could almost be the Urasawa waitress.
Oh yeah, for sure. That old lady in Isadora.
Right.
Just make her like the top of the head smaller and the bottom bigger. Yeah.
Right.
But see, I wasn't paying any attention to that kind of stuff as a kid. Like I wasn't, that's what I'm saying. I wasn't that sophisticated about, oh, look at them in the foreground. Like,
oh yeah. So that stuff was, I remember copying it. And, you know, I actually have real strong memories of these particular ones because it really reinforced my own inadequacies as a young artist. There was a kid in one of my classes in my third grade or my fourth grade class named Kenny. I don't remember his last name. I would give him a shout out if I could remember his full name. But Kenny could draw any of the characters from his memory.
Yeah, there's always that kid. I had Larry Zumwalt. My mom babysat him. He could draw a realistic looking dinosaur by the time he was 6, just out of his head, and to the point where he got in trouble for lying. His babysitter saw and it was like, you traced that, and he was like, no, I drew it, and he got in trouble. Larry.
Well, Kenny was my Larry, and I remember just thinking, go back one page if you would. I remember just thinking like, this is what it's supposed to be like. You've got to actually work at this, dude. Like, you know, you've got to make this happen. And I like this little formal trick here where he's falling through the floors, and one of the floors that he's falling through is actually a gutter.
Yeah, a panel border, and it allows them to go back to that horizon line again. So it's the same view, because otherwise you'd be seeing the bottom of this, right? It allows them to switch that horizon line.
And it also allows them to make it clearer that you're supposed to read the sequence that you're supposed to read it.
Yeah, boom, 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 boom. I think that's really important though, since we're getting like the nostalgic tip. It's good to have a Larry or a Kenny. I don't know about Kenny, but Larry was ridiculously talented, and I knew him all through high school, and then even after high school, we've hung out a couple times. But he never pushed because it came easy to him. And my dad would always tell me, he's like, look, if you want to do, because I told my parents I was going to be a comic book artist like when I was getting these at 7.
Right.
And that was always my goal. I never veered from that until I went in to be a professor. And my dad always told me, he said, there's some kid who's as good as Larry who works as hard as you do. You know, and
That's
so like that's how much harder you have to work.
Look at that page of Leonardo kicking the toys there.
Yeah,
just
the toys. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one of the down, marketing things of this comics. They introduce a new toy every
yeah, because this, I noticed that, like, and I remember those toys. I remember each one of them. Like it's a lot of it's the vehicles. Stuff that they ride, the vehicles. Yeah, these, I remember those skateboards. Yeah, every one of these.
Here's another good example of the exaggerated foreshortening, animation style foreshortening. And look at the line weight there. You're not confused and thinking he's giant or something like that. He's got this thick weight that's telling you how close he is to you.
Yeah.
It's really quite amazing and a quite durable style. I mean, you could, so this is now been printed This has now been printed directly twice, right? They shot it or scanned it directly from a printed version, and yet it's still super durable. It even reads on the screen just fine.
It reads on the screen better than in person, by the way. Some of like right here, I don't know if you can see it on screen. Let me see if I can lift this up without causing too much of a can you see where the image from the other side of the paper showed through on the scan? So man, they scanned it, and you get like right here, I can see like I'm seeing through the page. Like you can see the, yeah, you can't see it. You can see the word balloon from the other page. Right. Like it would be if you had it in the newsprint and you were holding it up and you could see through the paper. Like that got preserved in their scans of the thing. Like so I can see panel borders and characters and word balloons, and this is like pretty thick paper, so it's not coming through this paper. Like that's how little work.
Yeah. If you want to avoid that, by the way, there's a mechanical way to do that. All you have to do is put black paper, construction paper, underneath your scan as you're scanning it, and it'll eliminate a lot of the show through.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy. Like there's a panel border running right through the face right here.
There, that Raphael reaction shot there at the bottom. That's another classic that I totally copied and have internalized. All of the stuff where you see them in layers and they're slightly overlapping each other, and they've got the depth created by the weight, line weight, and the size. All those things are just things that I never realized where I got them from. Thank you, Ken Michroney.
Yeah, he's really good. And then this is Jim Lawson, and this I 100% remember because it's so bizarre. Is this weird cow? And I remember this cover, and I remember them having these different costumes, and Raphael being in the black, like the black Spider-Man kind of costume.
Right. And apparently those were costumes that Eastman and Laird designed after they originally designed the Turtles, and they thought they were each going to have different costumes, and then they shelved them. And so Ryan Brown pulled him out of a shelf somewhere and said, hey, so we got this cow, this interdimensional cow that can swallow him up, carry him from place to place. These two tree guys are like concert promoters who grow money as their concepts are taking off.
Yeah, I remember these characters really clearly too. He's a trans-dimensional cowlick, and like, yeah, Stump and Sling, like just how strange those characters are.
And quite entertaining to see Jim Lawson's struggling with his, to make it cartoony enough. He's got his own, really, he's incredible. I don't know if you've ever read like Return to New York, the series that he. Oh, you said you haven't read any of the Mirage ones. He's a Mirage
No.
Ninja Turtles artist, and when he works on the duotone, he just does super grimy stuff that's really, really nice. This is
No.
a very interesting stylistic clash, and I just love this wrestling, all the wrestling stuff here.
Yeah, and I was like super into WWF at the time, like Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior, the Cop and Macho Man and all of that. So like to have Ninja Turtles and then like intergalactic wrestling with like the dude with 4 arms and this, like, yeah, I remember all of this stuff. It's just like you couldn't have made a better comic book for like 7-year-old me. Like there's stupid costumes. And I love like how Murphy was able to adapt. Like you said, it's all his same interest in like poisoning the environment. It has, I guess as it goes longer, it gets more political, the stories, than the 2 volumes I have. Can you see it on this one?
Yeah, that's really something else. Yeah,
That's the image from the other side of the page, just because they couldn't even be bothered, and there's just all of this noise. They couldn't be bothered to like get a copy that, or yeah,
it's very strange that the Archie wouldn't have kept any of the assets, or they didn't ask them for them, or I mean, who
it's
knows?
just a nostalgia sell, I think, so they don't care. Yeah, but here he's talking about the cow finally spits them back, and they've got melted ice caps that they're dealing with.
He brings them too far back into the future, and they see that their city's drowned. It was a really a sobering read as a 8-year-old or whatever.
And this character, that guy, I remember loving that guy.
Wingnut.
And his little mosquito.
Yeah, the mosquito that flies on his back.
And I definitely had the action figure of that. I wonder. Yeah, here's another. That was a toy. I probably had that toy.
Oh, the blimp, yeah.
Yeah, the blimp. But how like manic this character is. I remember being into that as a kid.
What kind of whiplash do you think that Murphy would have gone through having written something like Puma Blues? It was obviously very personal for 2 years, and then gone straight to, something that was selling 100 times more copies, 200 times more copies, 500 times more copies.
The question I have there is the philosophical whiplash of an environmentalist being tasked with coming up with a story to sell a new plastic toy every issue. Like, okay, create a new mutant every issue, come up with some new, or here's the Zamboni that we're going to be selling, so stick it in the story. And like this like where it even will have like the balloon gets popped and it detaches the plane, right? Which the toy would do. Like you'd click a button and it would detach the bottom. So he's working the mechanics of the toy into it. And that's what I wonder about. Like, and he was on this, and I think he wrote the most Ninja Turtles cartoons too. So the contortions that he must have felt of being complicit in this, which is like exactly what he was fighting against in Puma Blues, and like selling it to himself. I'd imagine as a young guy just needing the money, like selling it to himself as like, well, if I lean into this corporate stuff, at least I can sneak in this message that's going to shape the next generation. And justifying it to yourself that way.
Yeah.
and I wonder how he feels about that now, and what the struggle was at the time. This, look, there's a deflated balloon, something plastic. Fucking condom in the sewer. Yeah, I don't, do you think like the making money was is that like the part of the whiplash that's more interesting to you?
Yeah, no, I think that it's both the both things. It's it's just an interesting thing.
There's your
there's the
toy
next
for the
toy.
issue. Yeah.
You notice Jim Lawson's back for a month here.
It gets more angular. Yeah, and
Right. This
his
is
anatomy's not as good.
this is closer to his natural style here. But it's like I said, this is like clean line inked, whereas he's like basically the dirtiest, grimiest, some of the dirtiest, grimiest comics I've ever read are inked by him. He's a fantastic inker. Obviously, he's not inking his own stuff here. It's just like a clean line, sort of half approximation of what it must have looked like at the start. But he gets to do the googly eyes.
Yeah, this guy's awesome. I remember that too, for sure. And I like that they're building like I got to keep reading these actually because I was really enjoying it. But they're building like this team of mutants, that Shredder and Krang are trying to get these more evil mutants like Bebop and Rocksteady on their side, but they just keep making more allies for the Turtles. So I was really enjoying reading this. I really like the Black Raphael, like that he chose to keep that suit. I remember really liking that as a kid. Here's going to be a cockroach guy. And some of these characters here, I remember these too because they're so gross.
Too gross for prime time.
Yeah, like especially this flatworm guy. Oh my God. My parents let me read that. That looks like a Bill Rye. I don't know if you're aware of his art, but I think he did some backgrounds for Ren and Stimpy. And
oh, sure.
It looks like a Ren and Stimpy type of thing. And then the cockroach guy. And this right here, look at that face.
Yeah, that's really something else.
Like that, I don't know. Just the look back with the squinted eyes. Yeah, I was sad every time I turned, every other issue turned into a Jim Lawson issue. While I was reading through this and I was like, oh man. Here's Murphy's aliens obsession comes into play.
Quite good lettering in these issues. Sometimes I like that header there.
Clean. Like everything's clean. Like you said, like you don't even pay attention to the storytelling. It's just everything's fluid, as it should be with the kids comic.
Right.
This Rat King, I remember this dude.
I kind of wish that they had let Jim Lawson be Jim Lawson for the finishes for this one, on account of the sewer and everything like that. He goes so grotesque with the design, but then he doesn't get to, finish it off that way.
Yeah, but would my parents have let me buy it? Like this is already pushing the limits of like, I don't know, I'm 7 or 8 and like there's like that thing. And that Rat King, he's like a really freaky looking dude.
The flatworm thing is another interesting, like kind of mini Puma Blues thing. So we find out here that Bebop and Rocksteady did not get buried alive. Our toys did not get buried alive, but there is a scary robot thing for them to kill, which speaks death bubbles.
But this is why my mom was like okay with the Ninja Turtles, even though it was quote unquote violent, is because they were killing robots. And they even talk about that in the early books. It's like, I don't know if we can hurt this guy. It's like, it's okay, it's just a robot.
I love the Shuriken panel there with his tongue out. That's a nice Jim Lawson cartoon. You can see him kind of easing into it a little bit.
But the only problem is from a narrative standpoint, he's already got rays coming out of his eyes. So like you don't, from a storytelling standpoint, you don't it's easy to miss that those are the shurikens going in,
Right.
because it's also the rays going out. Like I'm looking at that, it took me a second to be like, okay, where did those go? So he's not as smooth, I don't think, as the, what's his name, Ken Michroney.
Yeah, Mitchroney or Mirage. Apologize about not knowing how to pronounce his name.
He's definitely the good turtle artist. And then it gets weird again. Murphy with his aliens and his hoodoo voodoo.
Yeah, so it turns out the woman who turned the guy into a Leatherhead,
The crocodile, yeah.
right, is actually a space alien herself.
The voodoo swamp lady.
Right, Mary Bones.
Yeah.
And then we get the most Puma Blues we've ever had so far in this. With this,
Yeah, and I mean, it
idyllic-
goes into just that exposition too. It feels good against their backs as they graze upon the tough young grasses. And then the
And
transition there.
he's been dreaming about being on the savannah, which I thought was a nice humanizing. Well, humanizing.
Yeah, but the storytelling transition too, of like the more naturalistic coming into the eye and then zooming back out
Yeah.
to the more cartoony, and the expression on his face, like so clean. Oh, and then I just thought, like, from Dave's standpoint, you have this this creationist inversion of this female goddess who's holding an orb.
Mm-hmm.
I could imagine Dave getting a hold of these issues and having a hell of a time interpreting them, talking about this.
The extreme foreground leg there with the back shadow. That's another. I think this is probably the most influential comic artist. Nobody's seen any of my stuff, so I don't know why I'm talking about this as if people care. But when you read Discards eventually next year, I think it'll be obvious that there's some influence.
Yeah, I having seen you've finished quite a lot of this book that you're talking about too, having seen the first chunk of it. Yeah, especially your line work. I can see where this saturated you.
And that face there. Oh man.
Yeah. And then he has this this thing too, just thinking about how David interpreted it, where it's like the reason equals the brain and the emotion equals no heart, and she's they're like leaning into these more standard stereotypes of the masculine rationale versus the feminine emotion in these, which is kind of funny. I don't know, it's just a funny thing to see in there. And then these weird bug creatures, like, they're all so gross.
I loved that. It totally gross.
Like, how did my parents let me read this?
that panel transition where she's turning her head and opening up her apparatus. Oh, that just has stuck with me for so long. It's one of those images. Like, I guess I've carried it around for like 30 years. More than 30 years. I don't
remember it until I see it, and it's like, oh yeah, I do remember that. But it's very Giger, right? Like it's like, let's put Giger into a kid's book and make it work. Yeah, so I mean, like, I would not have known that was the same guy unless you brought it up, and I never would have gone back and read these old Ninja Turtle books if you hadn't have suggested it. So I really appreciate it. I wish I could say that I saw as much of myself in there as you do, but these are formative, I think, for, God knows how many of us around our age. These were everything.
I wonder how many they sold. I mean, it's got to be, in the hundreds of thousands per issue, right?
It had to be, because like I would be getting them, like you said, off of the newsstand. And look at this guy, T-Rap.
Wait till you have him. So you only ended on issue 8. Okay, yeah,
I gotta keep reading. Yeah, I was enjoying it.
I read the next 8 issues, and it's just as good as I remember. It's quite amazing. So they're building up for another gladiatorial combat with the sons of the the terrifying bug lady. The original Mirage issues have a televised battle as well, and I think that that's where some of that influence came from, or the storyline influence. But the real strong aspect of these early issues here is how they tie them all together, and they sort of go from one issue to the other. There's always a thread connecting them through to the previous ones.
Yeah, and it's so funny watching him write something like Puma Blues and then watching him come be so good at that commercial, like, okay, this is a complete story in 20 pages, 24 pages, or whatever it is, but it's also telling this long thread with these nice cliffhangers, but you can also dip in and out of it, versus like the just absolute experimental nature of Puma Blues, and thinking that it's the same dude, like flipping between those two, is really impressive to me.
It is, and I don't get the feeling that he necessarily intended it, the Puma Blues, to be that experimental. I think that they just kept on doing the thing that was rewarding.
Yeah.
I know that before Puma Blues, he pitched stuff to Marvel, and apparently got a personalized rejection slip from Jim Shooter that said, "These are all good, but not good enough."
Wow. But with no explanation of what you need to do.
No.
Yeah.
Very typical, right?
Yeah. I don't know.
But
it's impressive.
I just it's interesting because, like, with some retrospect, you might see Puma Blues as the detour. And this is sort of what the goal was in the first place. Not necessarily the mass market thing, but just the concise storytelling thing. I really wonder. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Puma Blues seems so personal, though, that it's hard to think that he really wanted to be, especially given the personal political views expressed in Puma Blues. I find it hard to believe that he really just wanted to be contributing to a machine like this. But then, I mean, that's what he did for his career. When I looked it up online, he was the most episodes of the show written. I think he stayed on this, like, I mean, pretty much till they quit publishing it, like 50 something issues. So I don't know how much of that was necessity, if he was longing to get back to the other thing. It seemed like there would have been enough financial reward there. Not that you could have gone out and done your whole other publishing venture or something, but that you could have written some stuff for yourself at night.
And I'm pretty sure that the Mirage people were fairly generous with the way that they dealt with people. You can see that all of the stuff that he created is copyrighted under his name, and stuff that's jointly created is copyrighted under multiple names. So I think that there was definitely some kind of profit sharing partnerships or whatever with that stuff. But so you say the rest of his career. So it would be interesting to say that. So he's been doing a fanzine of sorts, or not fanzine, but a zine with a new artist who has mainly done criticism, as far as I know, before doing this. But it's been very entertaining to read the first two issues and try to figure out where they're going.
Yeah, it's fun to be funky. And John Robnack sent me these. John, who also just so happened to win one of the pieces that I gave away. That was funny when you told me that. And then, like, just right after I sent him that art, he sent me these. So these are the first two issues of their zine. I don't know where it's going. It's really funny though, because if the story is true, John and Stephen Murphy have some kind of pre-existing connection that's pretty friendly, it seems like. But John saw Ed Piskor. I don't know what they were talking about on. Oh, okay. So Cartoonist Kayfabe did an episode on Mirage mini comics episode.
Oh, okay.
So there must have been some mini comic that Mirage released that Stephen Murphy was involved in. And at some point,
Probably
Ed Piskor said, that Stephen Murphy dude is the opposite of fun. And I haven't watched the episode, so I don't know if he was being serious. Like, I don't know, this guy's boring, or if it was
or
a joke.
Ed didn't see through the Dean McLaren nom de plume.
Yeah, I don't know, but that's how this opens, is like, hey Murph, I'm sending you a link to an episode of Cartoonist Kayfabe where Ed Piskor says that Stephen Murphy dude is the opposite of fun. And then Murphy says, is that my legacy? I said, okay, let's make a fun comic. And it's a very strange book where I is this supposed to be Stephen Murphy? I don't know.
The narrator is speaking almost as if it's, Stephen Murphy, but of course it doesn't look like him. It's not depicting him, so who knows? A guy flying through space discussing collecting Will Eisner Spirit comics. So I would say about halfway between Puma Blues and TMNT Adventures.
Yeah, and I guess it's supposed to be like, okay, now we're having fun. Let's try and make a comic that's fun. But there's a lot of these Puma Blues like things where there's a lot of dialogue or whatever. So it's a really interesting, it's a really interesting book. It's hard to make judgment on it without seeing where it's going. But Rovnak's doing some pretty good Eisner ripoffs, especially on the covers. He's playing with that style, so it's interesting. I'm curious to see where those go. But I'm also curious that, like, what else is Stephen Murphy doing at this point? Yeah, I'm interested in this guy. Like, his career arc is so strange to me now. So thank you, Sean, for reintroducing me to all of that.
Yeah. And thank you guys for watching. And if you can pick up some of these issues, especially if you have a kid, I mean, it's really good genre comics. I think that especially like a younger kid will really enjoy them. And the art is fantastic and quite interesting to see what the sort of standard, top shelf standard for kids entertainment was in 1988 or 1989. Which was pretty damn high.
Yeah, it made me an artist. So yeah, enjoy it. These IDW collections, they collect 4 issues at a time. They're soft cover, $20 a pop. You could probably get them used. I would suggest getting them used if you can find them used.
I would bet you could probably get the individual issues for cheaper than that if you hunt around and aren't picky about condition.
Yeah, it's cool stuff. I had a lot of fun with those, and had a lot of fun working on, I don't think we'll show them yet, but Sean and I both are working on our TMNT number 8 covers. Actually, mine's out on my Instagram already, but that will be coming out this summer from Waverly Press. They're going to be releasing that, and a number of us are doing variant covers for that will be part of it. So at some point, me and Sean will have to do. Sean's got to dig up some of his old Ninja Turtle art. I definitely have some old Ninja Turtle art scanned, and we'll have to look at now and then. That will be fun.
Sounds good. Let's see how much Ken Michroney crept in there.
Yeah.
Crept in there.
Crept. No, how much he crapped in there. All right. Thanks, guys. Take it easy.
Have a good one.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.